Welcome to Philosophical Entertainment, a podcast where, if you're not philosophically entertained, our entertainment is only philosophical. I am Nirakara Vani. I'll be your host for today's episode as we continue a journey that we began with a playful presence and the innocence of the inner child. And now we're going to move gently into the deeper waters of healing, resistance, and remembering. Before we begin, I'd like to invite you, not just as a listener, but someone with a heart still beating and a soul still stretching, to take a moment and breathe. Yes, breathe deeply. Let it remind you that you're still here, that you've made it through everything that's happened so far, that this moment is yours. And if this show speaks to you, if it stirs something inside of you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. It's a small action with a big impact. Your support helps this show continue to reach hearts, touch minds, and speak to those still searching for the light in dark places. Now, back to the heart of it. As we continue our conversation with Bracha Goetz, I want to reflect on something quietly radical that unfolded in our last episode. The idea that joy, real joy, the kind you don't have to chase, is not only possible, but natural. In a world that constantly asks us to grow up, to get serious, to control everything around us, it's easy to forget that joy doesn't come from control, it comes from connection. And this is where we begin to touch something sacred, the inner child. Science now tells us what mystics have known for centuries, that the inner child is not just a poetic metaphor, but a real part of our psychology and neurobiology. During childhood, we wire our brains for survival, not for authenticity. We learn what to suppress in order to be accepted. We trade curiosity for caution, wonder for worry. And in doing so, we exile the softest part of ourselves, the child who still believes in magic, who still trusts in people, who still feels everything fully. But here's what's wild. That child never left. You didn't outgrow your inner child. You just outpaced them. You buried them under schedules, shame, and survival tactics. And what Bracha reminds us so beautifully is that returning to that child, not through regression, but through reverence, might be the most profound act of healing we ever undertake. I was reminded of this lesson years ago when I adopted Roxy, a loyal, sharp-eyed German Shepherd, who would become my service dog, my companion, and unexpectedly, my teacher. At the time, I didn't realize how much I had lost touch with myself. Not the adult self I was performing, but the tender, sensitive self I used to be, the child I used to be, the one who noticed everything, the one who cried when animals were hurt and lit up the sound of wind chimes. Roxy didn't bond with the adult version of me. She bonded with the part of me that still played, the boy who used to sit in the grass and talk about bugs. And slowly, through her eyes, through our connection, I remembered how to be gentle again, how to be curious, how to trust without a why. She taught me something Bracha speaks to with such clarity, that healing isn't about learning more. It's about remembering what we already know. That joy is simple. That love doesn't need a reason, and that the truth doesn't scream. It whispers, like a child tugging at your sleeve, asking you to come back to the present. It leaves me wondering, what if our inner child is the key to enlightenment? What if the very reason we feel so disconnected, so anxious, so dissatisfied, is because we're seeing the world through the eyes of an adult? An adult who's learned to filter, to judge, to plan, to brace for disappointment. But what if we could look again through the eyes of the child still alive in us, Is that what Jesus meant when he said that unless you become as a little child, ye shall never enter into the kingdom of heaven? The kingdom of heaven being the moment. The one child in us, that one part of us, it doesn't need a 5-year plan to feel joy. It's the part of us who believed in love without proof. The one who knew that magic didn't need explanation. It just needed your presence. I believe, and I mean this from the deepest part of me, that returning to the inner child isn't going backwards. It's waking up. Because the inner child in you never stopped watching, never stopped hoping, and never stopped waiting to be invited back into your life. Bracha's work speaks directly to that child. It doesn't lecture, it doesn't shame. It simply offers the tools to live whole again, through simplicity, through stories, and through sacred truth. In today's episode, we explore the relationship between addiction and the hunger of the soul, the connection between gratitude and neuroplasticity, and the simple, profound wisdom of turning toward what is still beautiful. So, as we begin, I ask you not just to listen, but to receive. Let the inner child in you sit in the front row of this one. Let them laugh, wonder, and maybe even cry. Because today's episode isn't just about remembering who you are. It's about reuniting with the part of you that never forgot. This is Philosophical Entertainment. I am Nirakara Vani. This is part 2 of our conversation with the radiant, real, and utterly remarkable Bracha Goetz. Let's dive in. Well, and you mentioned, and even in solitary confinement, like I was saying, even if you're in the perceivably most miserable conditions, if you have joy inside of you,
Yes.
you can still
Yep.
experience solitary confinement with gratitude.
Exactly right. Exactly.
I think we pick.
And I want to say that addictions are a lot like solitary confinement. I mean, they're not completely, but a person becomes so estranged from the world. It's like being in a prison, an addiction. Yeah.
Because I think it's, addiction provides diminishing returns. And so it fades and it almost is, but because things in this reality beget themselves. So if you plant a seed of hate, it will grow. And if you plant a seed of love, then it
Yes.
will grow. It grows after its own kind. You plant a tomato seed and it will grow a tomato plant after its own kind.
Yeah.
And so in this place, I think sometimes we fail to recognize what seeds we're planting, and we're
Yes.
surprised by the fruit that it yields.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And
Very, very good.
well, it's true, because I think sometimes the seeds are given to us, and so we don't know what it grows into when we
Yeah.
receive that. And
Yeah.
you mentioned, that as we grow, the coping skill itself kind of also has to grow. Otherwise, like, if you need to eat cereal this morning, you need to be holding a spoon. But if you didn't put the fork down from dinner last night, you can't eat breakfast. You can't eat the cereal. So in order to perform the next task, you have to set down the old tools. And
Wow.
in many ways, we're still holding on to the same old tools. So we're trying to
Right.
perform surgery with the wrong tools. So we're trying to
Right.
perform adult tasks
Right.
using the tools from our childhood. And so,
Beautiful.
and as we see, like a giant man child in traffic,
Yes. Yes.
not able to control his emotions,
Yeah.
we're it doesn't look age appropriate.
Right.
And we
Right.
have a kind of a conflict, because that person is using a tool of an old time that's not
Right.
applicable for the scene work. And
Right.
a lot of us, when we go in for job interviews, or we go in for our first date, or we go
Yeah.
in to different scenes, we don't realize that we are presenting with that baggage, with those
Yeah.
tools.
Yeah.
When you kind of relay these principles as your 6-year-old self, how would you take that message to children to share with them the need for putting down the fork if you need to eat with the spoon.
Hmm. One of my books is called Let's Break Bad Habits, right? And even in this book too, what you do, it's the voice will tell you, you learn the way the voice talks to you. Again, it's that coping voice. It's the bad habit that you got into. Like it'll tell you, just have a little piece of this, or just do this for, if you just have a little piece of the cake, but then you just keep eating it and eating it. And you can use that same tool to say, I'm just going to pick up the fork. I'm just going to pick up the fork for a minute, no big deal. And I don't have to really change. You same type of thing. You use the same tools that got you into the trouble. You use them again to get you out. Like you have to be really aware of how it works. And the more familiar you are, the more you're empowered to use these tools like that. Exactly in that way. I'm just going to do this for I'm just going to, like, if you don't feel like exercising, I'm just going to put on some music. I'll just do some neck rolls, and that feels good. And then you do more and more stuff. You just get into it in the same way that you could end up eating the whole box of chocolate chip cookies because I'll just have a little. Okay, I'll have a little more, and then you've at the end you feel emptier than the box, which is an empty. Yeah.
That's really true. That's really true. And I have done that.
Yeah, yeah. So we all have. That's the thing. You do those kind of things like when you, and another trick that goes, this is another one of the tricks I bring up because feeling guilty and feeling shame, like you're not perfect and you're going to fall down and you're going to have relapses and that's going to happen. And accept that and know that beforehand so that it doesn't make you just wallow in it and then you feel I'm so miserable that now I'm just going to do more things that'll make me more miserable because I'm already miserable. And so what you say is like, okay, I just had 20 cookies. I'm grateful I didn't have 200 cookies. And if I had 200 cookies, I'm grateful I didn't have 2,000 cookies. We can always turn it around. We can always recognize when we're being pulled down, when we're adding on those layers and covering up that beautiful soul of ours. And the more we recognize it, we're regaining the tools to live joyfully.
Yeah, and I think that's reframing,
Yes.
seeing things through a different lens.
Yes, we call it training the brain to scan for positive patterns. We can retrain our brains. And what do we have to lose by doing that? Absolutely. Just try to think, what can we lose by doing that? Like, I also had become cynical during my years at college, so cynical, and I didn't want to live anymore. I really didn't, it didn't matter to me if I lived or not. Everything in the world had turned gray. So for the colors to come back, that's what it takes. Retraining the brain to see the positive patterns. And they're all over our lives if we look for them.
It's so interesting that you say that the world had become gray because in many memories I think of it that way, and
Yes,
I know that after my experience, like color it was different, and sound is different.
yeah,
It's full and it's beautiful. It's like I was
yeah,
on some 1980s screen, and then all of a sudden it's like,
yes,
HD digital, and I was, oh my God, like my everything was clear.
yes,
It's almost as if I had trained myself what to look for,
yes,
and the things that I looked for didn't have the colors, and it's interesting how you describe it. It's so simple, but it hits an experience of mine when I
yes,
I struggle to put words to that, the difference between the
Yes.
colors changing. And then there's people who try like psilocybin mushrooms, or they have their first like psychedelic trip, and then they say like afterwards color
Yes.
seems different. And to me, I think it's because they've let go of some of the scales that they've been putting over their eyes to see
Yes.
things black and white and to see things
Yes.
gray like that. How long did it take you, if you, I don't, because you were journaling and things, did you track the time that it took you to come back to seeing color again, to seeing it right? How long did
Yeah.
that take you?
Well, it was a spiritual experience. I came to Israel the summer between my first and second year of medical school. And I just had 6 weeks off and I didn't go back. I left everything. I I found my roots. I found the spiritual nourishment I was craving desperately. And it wasn't even a big deal to me to leave medical school and to leave everything. It was like, of course, So I immersed myself in spiritual wisdom. And what I tried to, in my book, when it just fell on the floor here, but wait a minute. In my book, years later, I came back to my parents' apartment and I found my old diaries. I remember I was sitting on the floor looking at them and I'm looking through them and I was trying to understand why, when I became nourished spiritually, why did the addictions just gradually leave? What did one thing have to do with the other? And that's what I'm loving to share now with the world because that's what fills us up. I finally understood.
Hmm.
I saw the thread going through my life from childhood, from age 12 on, and my search, and how when I found it, I didn't need to keep stuffing my face all the time. I didn't need those uncontrollable binges anymore because I was never running on empty anymore, because I had a basic sense of trust in life and trust in me. And when that trust developed, then I could understand that our whole purpose for being here is just this. We were just made here to create a relationship. This is a loving relationship. We are really here to be just loved up. But we've gone so far out of that garden, we don't even recognize it as a garden anymore. We're so lost. And that's understandable because, like, as you started to say at the very beginning with me, there was a retraction done so that we live in a world of illusion. And we have to find this. We have to find this. We have to find this love. We have to recognize that's where we really are in this amazing garden. And then everything changes, and then we can live lives of gratitude.
I, I mean, that's so beautiful just to hear it, the way that you word it. It's my experience as well. That
Yes,
it's it's beautiful when you experience it yourself because you understand the contrast of how lost you were and felt
yes,
to
yes,
and how hollow and empty, and I just kept
yes,
chasing and I kept thinking it was the next thing. It was always around the
yes,
corner and it never was.
exactly,
E-
exactly.
Everything I got just fell through my fingers and it never filled that hole.
Yes.
And when that hole is full, it reverses on you or something where you're so full you can't even, you just want other people to be filled up too.
So that's what we're doing.
And that's it. That's what,
We, we
and if all of us did that, this place would just be on fire.
It's happening. We are part of this happening right now. It is so awesome to be alive right now. It's all unfolding. These podcasts, this is such an amazing thing. We're talking from way different parts of the world. You're in Phoenix.
Phoenix,
I mean,
Arizona.
I mean, my children are in Phoenix, so I'm like, I go to Phoenix. I know. So like And here I am in Israel. It's like so amazing. Look what's happening.
Isn't
The
this beautiful?
connections. It's an unbelievable thing. And it, all the connections, the separations, the veils of separation are being lifted. It's dissolving. We're a part of spreading this message. This is awesomeness. So it's great.
I was thinking it's like capitalism is the game of Monopoly, right? And there's this, and it is a game, and a lot of us are struggling to admit that. But I think as games go, if you're going to start something, it will eventually end. And the game of capitalism is unraveling at the seams in America. And there are a lot of people who are attached to it. And so as it falls apart, that attachment, depending on how strong it is, will create feelings of despair or depression as
Oh,
the systems of man kind of
oh.
run their course. And so we're entering into an era that will produce a lot of problems. And I was watching another I guess interview of this monk, and he was asked about artificial intelligence, and the question was posed in a way, it was like, is would artificial intelligence encourage enlightenment, people to wake up from the dream, or is that something that would further shield it? And the response to that was, he kind of went into technology, but also kind of capitalism in a way where as systems ramp up, they get to a point that's so extreme, it's almost like a pendulum when things can only go so far
Mm-hmm.
before
Uh-huh.
people
Mm-hmm.
realize how absurd it is,
Mm-hmm.
forcing them
Mm-hmm.
to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
So, in many
Mm-hmm.
ways, everything that's happening in America is beautiful. It's wonderful. To see it fall apart. Oh, how wonderful. Because then people can see through the illusion of it. And so, as these
Mm-hmm.
illusions kind of shatter around us, maybe
Mm-hmm.
illusions of
Mm-hmm.
family or love for some people in relationships, as those shatter around them, there's beauty in that. And it's wonderful that it does because it helps us to find the joy and find
Mm-hmm.
gratitude and see their gratitude muscles kind of start to grow in that. What are your thoughts about
Yeah,
about that?
I'll tell you my experience. Like, I thought like if I get away from like my childhood place and stuff. So like at one point I started studying everything. Again, I was searching for that wisdom in life. So at high school I started doing really well and I got into Harvard and like my parents like, where are you coming from? Like we don't do things like this, you know? But like I went there and I felt like I'm getting away from my whole past and I'm gonna go and I describe in the book that I was at this garden party, for really exclusive garden party that I was invited to just because of my boyfriend had connections, big corporate lawyer, his father and everything. So I went. All these really the children of the most powerful, Kennedys, Moynihans, Rockefeller. I know all these kind of people, So at this party, I felt like I had made it to the absolute top. This is it. This is this is where you want to be. Fame, fortune, power, all these people. And what happened at the party was like I felt like everybody was kind of just like talking, holding their glass and like looking beyond who they're talking to, looking for more, looking for something more, Everybody, they were just
Oh,
like me. They are also looking for something more. And then, like what happened on this beautiful day in May, it started pouring. A big, huge thunderstorm happened. All of a sudden, the sky filled up and it poured, and the whole garden party was ruined. And I felt the crazy thought I had in my head was even these powerful people can't stop the rain from coming down on their party. There's something more. There's something more powerful than this, but I have no idea what it is. So I felt that despair of the breaking of the illusion. I made it to the top, and there's nothing up there, nothing. There's nothing to strive for. Fame, fortune, power, this is not where it's at. But I felt more despair than ever. In fact, the food addictions got even worse after that. Because I felt, again, I started to feel like there's no purpose. I have no idea what we're here for. And and like you said, when we make space, but when we recognize that it's a mirage, that it's an illusion, we can begin to be really open to what is it then? What are we here for? What is this all about?
It's it's a journey when you feel that emptiness. It
Yeah,
does feel like you're placed at odds with yourself.
yeah, yeah,
You do feel like you're searching.
yeah,
And it's there's like the feeling when you're dating and maybe you haven't committed to anybody yet. And so you still have a mind to be searching. So maybe you're
right,
checking people out still.
right.
There's a specific feeling in that you're kind of hunting or looking for,
Yes,
not to make them pray or anything, but that
right,
you're in a very specific mindset of searching.
yes.
And I was uh, I was experiencing those kind of feelings of emptiness as well. It's reassuring to hear from you that at those parties with all those mucky mucks, that they're just as empty and nonsensical as as everywhere
W- We
else.
we know that. We know that about famous people. They're not any happier than anybody else for sure. Maybe even more miserable than a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
I would say yes, more
Yeah.
miserable. Yeah. Well, too, because they're carrying the weight of how many people they've crushed to stay there.
Mm,
And as heartless as you want to be, there are going to be quiet moments when it creeps up in your mind about how many people you had to step on to get
mm,
there or to stay there at
mm,
that empty party.
mm.
But but yes, I would I have been to some of those parties as well. I was at this one party, and I think Bill Gates's ex was there. Same kind of empty people where we were in Seattle and doing this, whatever. Anyway, but yeah, same empty feelings of it feels like everybody's pretending something's happening that's not happening. It feels like collective gaslighting. I don't know how to say that. Collective
Yeah. Uh-huh.
lying. Is that a collective ego? Is that what that's called?
Well,
When
it's just illusion. It's just illusion. And everybody really, really wants the true nourishment. That's it. We all really want to live in simple gratitude. That's it's
well, the people who are
but we
at
don't
those
we don't know.
right, because the people at those parties, I don't think that they feel like they know either, and I feel like that
Right,
they
that's what I mean. Yeah.
well, and they're like being pushed in a direction where they've been told that that's where the solution is, so they want to keep pumping that harder to find the solution, and
Yes.
they don't realize that they're doing the same thing expecting a different result. So whether you made
Yes.
$100 today or $100 million today, it's
Yes.
still empty because the money
Yes.
itself, money is an illusion. And I think they think that it's real.
Yeah.
I think because it produces tangible
Well,
results to them, I think that they forget that money is to wealth what menu is to a meal. It's a representation, so it's an abstraction of the concept. But
mm,
if you think,
mm.
oh, well, women love me because of my menus, then you go print a billion menus. It doesn't mean that you have you're not all of that food. It's a representation of your access to that to ordering that food. And so it's ridiculous how as we learn more words and as we make it more abstract, we start to fall into the abstraction itself and forget what it was representing,
Yes.
and we're lost.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's how the parties are so empty because
Yeah,
everybody's
we're just playing the game. Exactly.
they're bragging about their
Exactly.
menus while everybody's starving to death.
Yeah, yeah, we're forgetting that. Yes, it's just games to keep the time. Exactly. To spend time, to kill time, as opposed to be just enjoying the simple things. Everybody really knows that.
They
We
do.
just forget.
Right. Well, and that's what was so funny about my experience was it wasn't that I came upon something new. It was that I was reminded of what was always there.
Exactly.
In the way that if you just cross your eyes to blur the story, you'll see the page. But if you're focusing on the page, you can't see the words of the text
Mm,
because your perspective has to shift to see the one or the other because we don't have the ability to
yes.
hold both of them, which is duality.
Right.
So, like when I was a math tutor, people would come in and I couldn't, if they were emotional, I couldn't get them to math. So
Huh.
we'd have to talk through our emotions. So a lot of it was more therapeutic, where I would listen to them, and because
Uh-huh.
I understand
Right.
that once we work through the feelings, then we can solve the problem. But they had to feel heard first. Their frustrations had to
Right.
be heard. And
Yes.
politicians inflame society by by playing with that principle because we can't entertain one more than one thought at a time. So you can't be ecstatically happy and angry.
Right.
So
Right.
if you want one feeling, you have to substitute it for another one. And so
Yes.
politicians inflame society by creating problems,
Uh,
by pushing a single thought in your mind. And it's a tactic. And we do this with prisoners too, because a prisoner can't escape who's tired. Or
mm,
so they put them to work. And if you work the prisoners
mm,
all day, then they don't have the ability to break out because they don't have the strength to think about
mm,
how to get out of the system. And so
mm,
if politicians can get you upset, you can't solve the math. But if you
mm,
can calm your mind, then you can
mm-hmm.
solve the math. And it's
Yes.
that dual-minded state that keeps us in conflict with ourselves and with our surroundings. And when they keep posing questions that will inflame, that will frustrate you, there's a school shooting,
Uh-huh.
and they don't want to focus on where they're tripping. They want to focus on where they're falling. Because if you remove the stumbling block, you delete their role. If you get
Mm.
rid of the problem and you solve it, then society doesn't need a politician because we already know what needs to be done. We don't need somebody focusing on where we're falling. So I feel like if if our perspective can shift where we can see authority is granted from ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We grant a religion authority over us, or we grant a society or a legal system authority over us. And at the same time, even if we say we're born into a system that's bigger than us and say it's out of our control, we're in solitary confinement or we're in some kind of camp against our will, people can't take from you your beliefs. They can't take away from you your perspective unless you let them.
Mhm.
And I think we unwittingly got a short-change artist stole from us our happiness without us realizing trauma blocked our light. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a choice that we can make in any moment and in every moment, not to allow others to dim
Mm.
our light.
Yes.
Do you feel like in the work that you're doing, you're helping to empower children to realize that?
Yeah, that's the whole goal, and that's what I hear. Even even I have books about the prevention of abuse, and I have books about how to interact with children with special needs because they're usually the most lonely children. They don't get invited to play dates and parties like other children. And I show in these books, even about swimming safely, these children feel safer knowing these guidelines in life because they understand better about how to interact in the world. And it makes them feel more secure to learn these basic guidelines so they can feel safe and appreciate life more. And that empowers children. And all of that helps their souls to shine more because also having a healthy body and a safe body that's a kind of a prerequisite. It's really important to have that in order to be able to fully shine. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard there of the concept of there's this belief of I'll take care of you if you take care of me in like a marriage or something. But more aptly put would be I'll take care of me for you if you'll take care of you for me. And I love that you just essentially said the same thing that when we have a happy and healthy body, we can
Yeah.
show up for other people in
Yeah.
our lives. So
Yeah.
when we're doing that, we are taking care of us for
Yeah.
everyone.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you were saying like, Phil, this is such a great time to be alive, and I feel the same way. I'm literally singing and I'm
Oh,
going doing comedy and I'm having the time of my life. But
wonderful.
you also wrote this searching for God in the garbage.
Ah,
And
yeah.
I wanted
That
to
you
talk with you about that.
that used to be the name of this book. It's got a new name.
And you
It used to be
changed it.
called that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. People really they wanted this name. It got changed to this.
I
Yeah.
wanted to
But
talk to you about that, about what were
okay,
your
but
feelings when you came up with that?
that's what it was about. I was literally searching for God in the garbage. At the lowest point in my life, that's what I was doing, going through garbage for food and stuff like that. And I was searching for what of value had been thrown away. What could I still redeem? What about my heritage was thrown away and tossed as meaningless and as just like a cultural thing when really it had deep spiritual significance, but I was never taught that. So I went searching, both literally and metaphorically. I was searching for God in the garbage.
Well, I've heard the saying like don't look for love in the same place you lost it. And if you were searching, if you felt like you were searching for God in the garbage, was the garbage like a distraction? Or do you think the garbage was the means to enlightenment for you?
I'll tell you, I worked like in a mental hospital volunteering actually when I was still at Harvard. And one of the things I learned about the patients acting out is that in mental illness, many times people act out metaphorically what they're experiencing.
Oh,
And I feel that's what was going on. I also, yeah, so I think that's what I learned, that I was really acting it out, searching through garbage for what still had value, because I knew something had gotten lost. I didn't know what it was, but that's what I was acting out. That's what in other words, this book my memoir is a psychological mystery because it was through writing it that I came to the understanding. At the end of the book, I really have the epiphany of what was going on here. What was I acting out? What was happening? And that's what explains it. Then I finally understand that. Through putting the book together, I came to understand it was this search for what still has meaning, what does have value in life. And that's what I was able to, thank God, find.
you know, you said some things that helped my brain just connect some dots, which was kind of interesting because I've been pondering about some different ideas, but the way you're wording things, I don't know why it's reaching me, but I'm really appreciating how you're saying things. You so just the fact that the name of the title of the book has changed, which I actually love, searching for God in the garbage. But just that it's changed, it kind of made me recall we interviewed a fellow who was a street epistemologist. And street epistemology is you essentially meet with people in the general public, and it's a kind of methodology to help people change their minds about how they see things. And the objective isn't to argue with them, but it's to ask them to state a claim of something that you feel as close to 100% as you could say. So some people will come out with religious beliefs, right? And there's this great video where he's talking with this guy and he says, talk to me about something that you believe strongly about. And the guy says he believes, in Jesus Christ and all of this. And he says, so fantastic. What is the percentage of, how high? And he says like 100%. And he says, oh, fantastic. So what, can you explain to me what gives it the credibility of 100%? And the guy says, well, he had 12 disciples. And he said, so 12 people testifying is enough for you to be 100% convinced of something. And he says, yeah, apparently. So then he goes, okay, So if I had 12 people sign a letter stating that they know emphatically, without a shadow of a doubt, that I communicate with a purple alien dinosaur on Jupiter, you would believe that. And then the guy goes, okay, well, and then he says, on a percentage scale of 0 to 100, how confident are you in this Jesus Christ character, right? And then he changes it. He goes, well, 99%, right? Because he has to say that that doesn't logically add up. So he has to lower the significance of that. So he won't, in the interaction, in that street epistemology interaction, he won't admit he's wrong. But later, it might occur to him how he's issuing authority. And
Right.
so street epistemology helps people just kind of make them think for a moment, what if they're wrong? Essentially.
Yes, it helps them gain clarity. Yes.
Right. And it helps them recognize that they were the ones issuing the authority. And it makes them question,
Yes.
what were the fundamental principles in that sales pitch that made you
Yes.
so convicted of that, right? So
Yes.
in that play space is where street epistemology works.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and this street epistemologist, he's talking about how when people do make the choice and they realize Santa Claus isn't real, then what they will do is that this is just an ego or it's just a human condition. They will go back and, to save grace of their present now, they will go back and rewrite their history and say that they had always known that it wasn't real. Because to themselves now, oh well, my ego at this stage would seem silly if I believed in that.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
they'll auto-correct their past. So when I saw searching for God in the garbage changing, I in myself, I experienced connection, deeper connection with you. Because when you when you travel through your spiritual journey process, I you could break it down into phases.
Yeah.
And the kind of suicidal, hopeless phase is like
Mhm.
nihilism, if you break
Yeah.
down nihilistic philosophy.
Yeah.
So nihilism to me is almost like the gateway drug to waking up. It's like
Uh-huh.
when you see through it all, it's just you realizing Santa Claus wasn't real. And in that kind of phase of your enlightenment journey, it does seem like that's all that really is. And it's hard to see the other side of that. And
Yes.
many people get caught in that process of nihilism and the depression and the suicidal thoughts, and they can't quite break through that phase to the next philosophical understanding. And
Yeah.
so when I was putting the podcast together, my first episode was on suicide. And
Yeah.
I wanted to talk with people about that phase and
Yeah.
that paradigm or the way that you're seeing the world. It's very real. But just as it is an emotion that you're holding, you can also hold another emotion. And you don't have to stay in that one. And there's a way to reason yourself out of it in a process of understanding to kind of graduate it. And
Yeah.
I haven't wanted to keep the podcast focused on maybe because those people are already beating themselves up and everything is already hopeless, right? And I don't want to criticize anyone that's passing through that phase of waking up
Right.
because I don't want them to feel like I'm beating them up.
Right.
So I don't want to say that there's another way of thinking. I don't want to um, insult them
Hmm.
or tell them to stop thinking that way
Right.
because the reaction to that is that I'm devaluing it. It
Right.
like you break up, get over her. At this
Right.
9/11 happened, get over it. And then
Right.
there's the other side that says, whoa, 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 that's insensitive. We
Right.
need to give the trauma, we need to give the loss like due respect.
Right.
And when people are feeling so strongly that way, I want to be respectful to what they're experiencing.
Right.
And I don't want to diminish its importance. But it's hard for me to, because I was a 911 operator for over 10 years. And And so I handled a lot of suicide, like suicide.
Yes.
And I have never wanted to, I guess, just take away from their experience. But at the same time that they want me to understand what they're going through, it would be selfish of them to not recognize that there is another way of seeing things too. If there's that way, then there is also could be another way.
Hmm.
In your experience, because it sounds like you have traveled through a very similar kind of experience that I did with that process. If you were to talk to your past self who saw things that way, what kind of message would you give that person now? So if you change the title of this book, Searching for God in the Garbage, and so the healed you now can title it different, but the
Yeah.
version of you who was going through it would have had a different title. And I love both of them because I can feel the stages of both of them.
Yeah.
So how would you talk to the version of yourself who was struggling and suffering through that?
The I remember like at like the lowest point of my life. I remember that I looked out and saw a tree outside the window, and it was like there is still something beautiful in the world. Just keep looking at that tree. Like when everything else was gone, I felt there is still beauty in the world. Just keep focusing on that. That's the way I try to speak to people because there's a story like that. There's a story, a man is on a roof and he's ready to jump. And this lady sees him across the way and she says, "Please don't jump." And he says, "Why not? My life is full of pain. I have so many problems." And she says, "Well, what if in addition to all your problems, what if you were also blind? And what if right now you were given the gift of sight? Would you still jump?" And he
Oh
says,
man.
"No, no, I'd want to see the world." And she says, "Okay, you had blindness. Open your eyes now. There are still some beautiful things in your life. Your hands are working, your legs got you up to this roof, you're breathing, you can see, you can hear. Just focus, open your eyes to see what is good in your life right this very moment." And that's all of us, every single one of us. We're all blind. We all could open our eyes more and see more and appreciate more of the many, many things we take for granted right this moment.
As we begin to close this sacred space of conversation, I invite you to stay a moment longer, not just as a listener, but as a fellow traveler, someone who's been searching, remembering, and becoming. What we've uncovered in this episode is quietly radical, that healing doesn't come from force, but from warmth. There's an old parable about the wind and the sun. They made a wager to see who could get a man to remove his coat. The wind blew, hard, fierce, relentless. But the harder it blew, the tighter the man clung to his jacket. Then the sun took its turn. It didn't force, it didn't shout. It simply warmed the man with light. And in that warmth, the man willingly let go. That's what this episode has been about. Not tearing away what protects us, but softening the need to protect in the first place. Not pushing the pain to change, but shining so much love on it that it melts. What Bracha shared with us today wasn't strategy, it was sunlight. Her words reminded us that healing is a remembering, that joy is not a reward but a return, that we don't need to become someone else to be whole. We need only to reconnect with who we already are underneath the armor. The inner child still alive in us remembers. They never stopped believing in love and magic, in beauty that needs no explanation. We just stopped listening. We got caught in the wind. We braced. We armored up. We forgot how to shine. But we can remember right here, right now. Even if all you can see today is a single tree outside your window, let that be your thread. Let that be enough. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to force it. Just shine. Just soften. Just begin again. And if this conversation touched something in you, I gently ask, like, share, or subscribe. Not because we're chasing numbers, but because someone else out there might be standing in the wind, clutching their coat, waiting for a little light. Thank you, truly, for walking this path with us. This is Philosophical Entertainment. I am Nirakara Vani. Until next time, take care of yourself and love without delay. Namaste.